Joining me now, Paul Butler, former federal prosecutor and Georgetown School of Law professor. He's also an MSNBC analyst. Danny Savalos, MSNBC legal analyst. Danielle Moody Mills, host of the Woke AF podcast on Sirius XM. Thanks for that titling. And Jen Kerns, former California Republican Party spokesperson and contributor for The Hill. How you doing, guys?
Great. I love those closing credits. That looked
Did you enjoy that?
That was amazing. You read through it. It looked like the closing credits for West Wing or Benson.
The opening of Star Wars.
I feel like I need to take a nap after that, quite honestly. Paul, I'm going to start with you. I want to play a little bit of the Giuliani interview here with George Stephanopoulos, and I want you to weigh in on that. Roll it, guys.
Now, think about this. Suppose he tried to use his campaign funds to pay off Stormy Daniels. It would be totally illegal. If it's not a campaign expense, it can't be a campaign contribution. These are not campaign contributions.
But the corporate contribution from AMI would be clearly illegal.
No, it would not be. It's not a contribution. You do not pursue a president of the United States for a questionable interpretation of a statute. That is completely wrong. It's harassment. This special prosecutor was there for collusion. Now, then he went to obstruction. Campaign finance.
Paul, where is he even getting this explanation from?
You know, he called Michael Cohen a pathetic lawyer, and Giuliani would certainly know what a pathetic lawyer is, because what he said is simply not true. First of all, Mueller farmed off the campaign finance investigation to the Southern District of New York. So that investigation is going to be around for a long time after Mueller writes his report and rides into the sunset. With that investigation, Michael Cohen is one of the witnesses who implicates the president in this illegal conspiracy to violate campaign financing law.
One of, as does American media.
So eyewitness testimony from witnesses like Alan Weisselberg, who placed Trump in the room when the deal went down, but as importantly, forensic evidence like videotapes, not videotapes, but audio tapes, those tapes that Cohen was making of Trump. They've got text messages, they've got emails. The only thing that Giuliani said was correct is that no prosecutor is going to rely solely on the testimony of somebody like Michael Cohen, who is a cooperating witness, or as we say in the hood, a snitch. So you don't rely only on a snitch, but they're not doing that. They've got plenty of evidence.
And here comes Danny Savalos with his snitches get stitches.
Snitches do. That is true. That's the saying as it goes. Here's the thing, and I would say this respectfully to the great Paul Butler, but Rudy Giuliani is doing what most defense attorneys do, which is slam the cooperating witness. Say this man is a liar and the government got hand in hand with a criminal.
But this is his public defense. This is not an actual legal defense here.
Right.
This thing won't stand up in court at all, what he said.
Typically in court, defense attorneys attack the credibility of a cooperating witness. The reality is jurors appear to generally understand that it takes a crook to catch a crook, and they will accept, if the cooperating witness is charming enough, they may forgive some of those the criminal acts that they've done because they know that criminals hang out with other criminals. But Rudy Giuliani can be, some of his points may have merit, and one of those is that the actual crime is a defensible one, in that it requires a higher showing of intent and an actual contribution to the campaign. And he has a point that these may be defensible crimes, but he is not correct when he says that it is not a crime, because Michael Cohen pleaded guilty to it. It is a crime.
And by the way, Paul, isn't this how investigations work? He was talking about the fact towards the end of that soundbite, how this started with collusion, then it moved on to obstruction, then it moved on to campaign finance. That is how investigations work.
Just
because you start at collusion doesn't mean you can't necessarily get to campaign finance, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. Prosecutors follow lead. So we learned last week that now there's a new investigation about the president's inaugural committee, which apparently was a lead from some of the tapes that were uncovered in the search warrant on Michael Cohen. But, you know, when Giuliani says this is like the Edwards case, that's not good news for Trump, because, one, that means that goes to the jury. It means it is a crime. And so the factual issue the jury will have to determine is, was this money about...
But Giuliani liked the outcome of the Edwards case, hence the reason why he's making that comparison. But it can't be a straight comparison like that, because the timing is also completely different for these two individuals.
Is key, because when these payments were made, this hush money payments were made, were right after the Access Hollywood tapes came out. So it's all about a distraction. It's all about
which was
helping
literally
Donald
about,
Trump
what,
win the White
10
House.
days, 2 weeks before the actual election?
Exactly.
And let me just build
Go ahead.
quickly on what
No,
Paul
go ahead.
Butler just said,
Yeah.
which is Rudy Giuliani cites the Edwards case somehow as if it's precedent for the fact that you can't prosecute these crimes. No, no, no. That is not the situation. All that is a prosecution that was ultimately unsuccessful. It does not mean that what was charged is not a crime.
I even felt like when George pressed Giuliani on that second question, he had to take a moment to even think about it. Like he was coming up with his defense on the fly. He hadn't even walked into the interview prepared to defend the actions of the current president.
Yeah, I think
Did you
that's
get that
right.
impression at all?
Yeah, I think that's right. And again, this is a case that if should it go to trial, and of course, the Justice Department says a sitting president can't be indicted, so it will not.
Yeah.
But if it could, then the jury would decide. The only reason that Donald Trump is not an indicted co-conspirator now is because he's the president of the United States. That's the best defense for Giuliani.
Go ahead, Jen.
I think a few things need to be unpacked here, though. That list that you showed, which is great work by your producers, and that list of investigations, I think does underscore President Trump's point that this has been a witch hunt. Now, it may have led to some things. It may have, as people began to speak, they go down some different rabbit trails.
Wait. So you're saying that list is not his own, is not the president's fault? It's the fault of other people that are investigating?
You look at how
launching
this
these
investigation started 2 years ago. It was for Russia collusion.
But these investigations wouldn't have been launched if there was no wrongdoing, Jen.
Well, that's not true. Well, investigations are launched all the time where someone hasn't committed a crime.
But there's cause.
But you look at the
probable cause, an investigation
Russian collusion
is
was the initial investigation here. 33 people have been charged. About 29 of those were Russian nationals who largely were dealing with Facebook. So if anyone is guilty of collusion here, it might actually be Facebook for taking money for fake banner ads and things like that. But that's beside the point. You look one after the other. President said yesterday outside the White House that he believes this is harassment. I actually would take it a step further. You look at this alleged Stormy Daniels relationship.
So you think that the president should not be
2006?
held accountable for any of the actions that have taken place so far?
Look,
or what
I
has been
think he
stated in the Mueller investigation?
He actually has admitted that he's not a perfect person. This is why the faith-based coalitions like him so much. He's admitted he's a person who has sinned in his life. And look, the point is, I believe the president's not only being harassed.
Has the president
I believe
admitted
he
he's
was
not a
blackmailed.
perfect person? Has he admitted that?
Yes.
Can we go to a soundbite on that, guys, if we have it? It's going to take a while.
He has said he's never asked for forgiveness, but he has admitted he's not
I want to
a
bring up
perfect
a poll
person.
to you while you're here. 62% from this new NBC Wall Street Journal poll says that President Trump is not being honest and truthful about Russia. And 50% now say the Russian developments are casting doubt on his presidency. So there is some waning support there.
Look, I admire both NBC and the Wall Street Journal, big fans of both, but I would be remiss not to point out that on October 16th, 2016, that same poll, NBC Wall Street Journal, had Hillary Clinton up by 11 points, said she was going to win by a landslide, and that Trump was going to claim that the elections were somehow rigged. And so we see how that turned out. So I believe there is some overstating here in the polls. It's not the fault of the pollsters necessarily.
Except that the president's lies aren't a matter of opinion. They're a matter of fact. So the president lied when he called it a witch hunt, the investigation. The president lied when he tried to discount his relationships with Michael Cohen and Paul Manafort. The president lied when he said he wasn't dealing in Russian business during the 2016 election. Virtually everything he says about the Russian investigation
I think a lot of that, there's no evidence still to this date that there's been Russian collusion, none whatsoever. In fact, in the case of Michael Flynn,
you remember,
you remember,
I'm just so confused about
Michael Flynn
what do you
actually
call
lied
it?
to Mike Pence. That's why he got fired by President Trump.
29 indictments. I mean, I just think that it's really funny that at this point we have a laundry list. We are down a rabbit hole, not because it's a witch hunt, but because every time we turn over another piece of information, there's more stuff there that stinks. It's like peeling back an onion now, and we all need oxygen masks in order to be able to breathe. This administration is full of corruption. If there was nothing there, then it would turn up nothing. Then there would be no indictments. Michael Cohen would be free. Paul Manafort would be at Mar-a-Lago continuing to do what he's been doing, which is, business as usual. It's just this idea here that we continue to call this a witch hunt. A witch hunt was going after Hillary Clinton's emails and that coming up with nothing. A witch hunt was 11 hours of Hillary Clinton testifying on Benghazi and coming up with nothing. This is not nothing. And I don't know what it's going to take for Republicans to actually open up their eyes and say, oh, maybe we're backing a criminal. Maybe this man really isn't who he says he is. is.
Again,
because there is
zero
a
evidence
list
to this
of
day,
things that he
and
has
we'll have to
done.
wait for the final results. But look, the fact that we started with Russian collusion, and now today we're saying, well, Ivanka
that's how
Trump made a phone call to the
investigations
Trump
work,
hotel to make sure that people weren't paying above
Because
market
the
rate for a hotel
tangled
during
lies they
inauguration
tell.
in Washington, D.C. is in my
It's going
opinion,
to be an
nuts.
exciting hour, everybody. So much more to talk about. Paul Butler, thank you.
Great to be here.
The rest of you are sticking around, so you got a lot more to say, Jen, I know. Still ahead, Democrats, including former President Barack Obama,